Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. So excited to have the Student Compass back with us. And yes, the owner and CEO, Jake Horne, joining us here again to discuss what the gap year is and how it's helping so many, especially those Gen Z students out there who really are thinking about their futures. So first and foremost, Jake, welcome back to the show. Pleasure to see you again today on this early morning. How are you?
I'm happy and fine. Thank you very much for asking. It's great to be here.
We'll love to hear that. And you're based out of Washington Depot, Connecticut, and you're helping students all over the world at this point, which is pretty fascinating. So let's find out how we can contact you and then give us a quick overview about the work you do.
So the name of my company is The Student Compass. And if you want to find me on the internet, it's www.thestudentcompass.com. And it should come to the top.
Yep.
And my email, if you want to email, is Jake Horne, Horne, one word, 8216@gmail.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for being here. And tell us a little bit about what it is you're doing.
So I've been working with students who graduate from high school, who really want to take a break from the school thing before they head off to college. They've been in school for 14 years. Some of that school experience has been vibrant and some of it's been pretty deadly dull.
Yeah.
But it's been this kind of the same thing for 14 years. And these kids sort of inherently realize that the world is a much bigger place. There's a lot more to learn that they haven't learned in their, relatively small cocoon in school or in their local communities. As valuable and wonderful as those schools and communities are, the world is a big place. And if you're going to participate with the world, you've got to understand it much more than that little cocoon will provide you. So that's the intention, is to have kids, Gen Z kids, particularly now, get out into the big wide world so that they'll be much more prepared to deal with all the things that are coming down the pike.
Beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. And just the overview of the gap year, what does that really entail for people that may not understand this concept? I know you mentioned a little bit briefly, but just to go into more details about the excitement of this period in someone's life and really what benefits they can gain from taking this gap year.
Right. So this is this age group, which is really sort of 17, 18 to 24, 25, is really they're ready to take on the world. Yep. There's a certain urge to experiment and experience adventure. And so the upshot is that they're already primed. Yeah. If they are encouraged, they're primed to go off into the big wide world to experience things that are novel and different and new. So what I do, when they find me, what I do is I help them firstly understand who they are, help them at least, become more self-aware about what their capacities and skills are, what their value system is. And that's the sort of a preset for thinking about what they want to get out of the gap year. Because it's not just going off and fiddling around, going surfing for a year is not, the plan here. But typically what we do is when we go through this exercise, they discover more about what drives them and what impels them. Then we start looking at particular experiences they might be interested in and begin to design together usually 3 different experiences. It's kind of like broken up into semesters. So there's something that happens in the fall, something that happens in the winter, and something that happens in the spring. 3 months long. And the idea really is it's got to be long enough so that they actually become immersed, but not so long that they lose opportunity to do other things.
Wow. Well, thank you for giving us that overview. And if you are just tuning in, don't forget, Jake can be reached at thestudentcompass.com. And we're going to talk today about some examples you're going to give us of gap year experiences. I know you had your own, which is fascinating. And tell us a little bit more about that.
So what I look for these kids is an opportunity to experience the new. That which they've really never experienced before in an independent way, away from their parents, as much as they love their parents and how great parents are. But nonetheless, if they're going to become adults, they have to become more independent. So the idea is to get out and experience new places, new people. I also want them to experience what I call the awe. Okay. And the awe is really stepping into a situation which is so remarkably different that they stop and take distinct note. So I'm going to give you an example. So there was a young gal that I worked with who ended up in Costa Rica. She was teaching kids in a small school art and English. Okay. But she also spent time up in the cloud forest. Now, I don't know whether anybody listening or you, Jill, know about the cloud forest in Costa Rica, but it's on top of a ridge which runs up and down the central caldera, central spine of Costa Rica, and it is literally primeval. So if you think about, I guess, Jurassic Park. Okay. You step into this cloud forest, and these trees are hundreds of feet tall. Wow. The only sounds that you hear are the sounds of jungle, the hundreds of different kinds of birds, all these colors. You don't hear humans. You don't hear any human activity whatsoever. You hear the deep sound of jungle. You hear the howler monkeys. You see thousands of orchids that are growing on these trees that are curling up around these enormous trees. And you are immersed in the quiet, deep sound of what it used to be like on Earth before humans were really here. And it really creates this sort of awesome experience of separation from, those things which are familiar. And it engenders this sort of this intellectual and thoughtful moment or moments of, what is this? Where am I? Who am I? What is my place in the world? And what's this world I'm living in? And how and ultimately, this young gal came back from this experience, and she spent a lot of time in the cloud forest and with these kids. But the cloud forest was really one of those moments where it shifted her way of thinking about the world and really began this lifelong drive to look for the remarkable in people, to look for the remarkable in the human experience, and to carve her career in ways that is more than just the mundane. Going to work, getting a job, doing what, making money, having a family. Great as that all is, there's more to life than just that. And that's what I want these kids to know, is that there's much more to life than just simply being doing the expected. Yes, being agree. Creative, looking for the new, looking for the creative. And because what's coming down the pike is so remarkably different than anything humans have ever experienced before. We've always experienced change, but not at this rate and not at this volume and complexity. So these kids have to be even more prepared than my generation, your generation, to be able to take on competently and find hopeful ways of managing this very complex society, human society we live in. So that's one experience. I've had kids do. These are lucky kids. They either raise their own money or their families have enough money. But I had one young fellow who was actually a mathematician. He was going to go to college and do math. Yeah. For what purpose, I'm not sure, but he wanted to experience the ocean. So he went down to the Baja, which is down in sort of the south of California and Mexico, and it's where a lot of the whales go to calve and to have babies, and so it's fertile, lots of marine life and everything else. And he spent 3 months. Wow. Ultimately doing conservation work. Okay. And seeing how nature works at its very basic and very powerful and very complex level. And again, he came away from this with a very different way of thinking about the complexity of life. Yeah. And that life is not just a binary yes, no, black, white. It's complex, it's complicated. And to understand it, you got to think much more complexly.
Yeah.
You can't just look for the easy, simple answer. So, and again, those are just two examples of, but again, these kids do three different things that juxtapose and set themselves up for comparison. So, that young lady who ended up going to Costa Rica ended up going to Paris as well.
Wow.
And she wanted to learn how to paint well.
Yeah.
And so she lived in an atelier,
Wow.
lived with a local family,
Amazing.
worked on her art, and experienced Paris. Wow. And Paris, of course, anybody who's been there, it's an amazing place to be in terms of human culture, in terms of the relationships of history over time. So anyway, I don't know. I can give you lots more than that, but that's what these kids do.
Beautiful. Well, I love hearing this. Thank you so much. All right. Well, we still want to hear some more examples. And of course, we also got to get to, the work that you're doing that involves the Gen Z students and helping them create this gap year for themselves. So how do you, I'm sure it's tailored to each and every individual, right, of what they can do during this year. And you have plenty of experience helping Gen Zers out there.
Yeah. So I've been doing this work since 1991. So it's not been just Gen Zers; it's been millennials also. Mm-hmm. But this age group is really their minds are really fertile, okay. And they really want to do something. Yeah. But I think they're kind of like stuck. Mm-hmm. They're stuck because school has stuck them. Yeah. When kids start school when they're young, it's all exciting. It's all new. It's all fun. And yes. Then you have children. I think
7 and 9, two boys. Oh yeah.
As it's big and it's amazing. But school also becomes a routine, mm-hmm. and it becomes an expectation of performance to prove that you have the ability to handle college, and so it becomes much more rigid, much more standardized, far less creative, and far less experiential. So these kids it becomes dull. Yeah. I mean, it's sad, but it becomes really dull. These kids have not had the opportunity then to break out. But that's what human nature really wants to do, is to break out and see the new and to stretch out and be independent and to be capable individuals who live a life that is fulfilled. Mm-hmm. So I start off with, know yourself. That's an old Greek aphorism from the Delphic Oracle. But the idea is, who am I?
True.
And what are my capacities? And what drives me? What doesn't? And most of these kids, when they start, they really don't know. Yeah. But they need the conversation. They need to begin to think about these kinds of things if they're going to have a fulfilled life. And I want these kids to have a life where they thrive. They can have a happy, productive lives in which they're doing something that makes them feel great and makes them feel as if they have something to contribute, which is more than just, the sort of the expected, that they have something that the society is going to need for it to be successful as well. And, and part of this problem this generation has, the Gen Z generation, and the alpha generation, which is, your kids, they're sort of right on the edge. Yeah. But the upshot is that they're going to be looking at extremely complex transformations coming down the pike, driven by technology, driven by global affairs, driven by, resource competition, issues of climate. This is like unprecedented. And it doesn't, and they can do it if they're trained to think creatively, and they're brave, and they have confidence in themselves, and they have a sense of hope that they can do something to contribute, make a difference to society. And I think this generation, the Gen Z generation, really wants to do something great.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, but they're not getting the support, and they're not getting the care in school, and they're not getting, colleges don't provide them with anything more than, to be really crass, but anything more than a diploma.
Correct.
And the assumption is, in our American society, you get the diploma and that's the gateway to, riches and fame. Well, it's not. You have to bring more to that experience in college, and you've got to step out of college with a lot more than you've got going in. And colleges aren't going to give you that unless you take it on yourself.
Absolutely.
And be a self-advocate. And the gap year really, is a boost. I mean, it really gives you a sense, if you do it, of what's possible. Okay, so, but I really want these kids I want them to be awed by the world. I want them to appreciate the complexity and the multiple different perspectives that people have in this world about what's important to them in their lives and in their communities, and what their goals and purpose in life is.
Beautifully said. All right. Well, also at this time, I just want to remind everyone, Jake, how we can reach out to you. Could you share the phone number, the website, and then we'll continue the conversation? Sure. Thank you.
So, yes, the website is www.thestudentcompass.com. And my number is 860-921-6158. And please, just feel free to call anytime. I'm happy to chat. Parents have a lot on their plate. Parents are dealing with anxieties. I mean, their parents are dealing with a lot of the same kinds of issues that their kids are dealing with, except they're juggling their careers on top of trying to support their kids, and it's really hard now. It's harder than ever before. So, I'm happy to talk to parents, and usually that's where it starts. But I'm happy to talk to parents anytime.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, Jake, this is exciting, and it's just fascinating. Not until I really, met with you did I know about this, and I've heard the term, and now I'm understanding it better and realizing a lot of people are benefiting from this, and it really could help with your future career, not just going to school steadily, but to have that break, to learn something new, to work in a different trade, to get that experience, to travel, enlighten yourself, and really wisen up. So there's also a lot of future careers you help people think about as well.
Well, there are so many that it's, it's going to be it would be very difficult for me to go through the list. I think you have it in front of you, but these are careers that are in large part driven by the technology. But technology evolves so rapidly that the job of coding, for instance, which everybody thought would be, the thing to do forever, is being taken over by the AI.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that, coding, by and large, AI can do the coding. But what people need to do, what humans need to do, is to be the gatekeeper of what that code looks like and what the AI actually does with that code. Because an AI, because it's generative, it has its own mandate built into its own code. It's constantly morphing and changing and trying to optimize. And so what you start off with, ultimately, in terms of the goal for the AI algorithm, may be ultimately completely different.
Yeah, exactly.
So humans have to be very, very aware of the effects and their role in being the gatekeeper and the moderator of what this technology does. It can go great, it can be perfect, it can be a great benefit, or it can be horrific. And so, originally, let's talk about drones, for instance.
Sure.
Everyone was hot on drones. Yeah. And drones are fun. They're interesting. You can do all sorts of great things with, I have friends who use drones to take pictures 200, 300 feet off the ground, and it gives you a totally different perspective of the world, in your community and, how things fit together. But of course, drones have been modified to become weapons, and so, so the problem with them making them weapons, and I don't want to turn this into a conversation about whether that's morally ethical or not, but the upshot is it's easier to use a drone to, knock out a whole bunch of people, and nobody gets hurt on your side. Yeah. So that makes that makes the moral sort of component to this, this technology. It makes it, you need to reflect. When we have to reflect on why we do this kind of thing and why we change things and how things can, turn out bad. There are, for instance, with AI, you can use your taxis, for instance. Okay. So my hope is by the time I'm old enough, I can call a car up and there's no human. I could just be picked up by a car and, taken wherever I want to be. And it's the AI driven.
Okay.
Lots of work in conservation and climate mitigation. You see what's happened with, let's say, with hurricanes, for instance. Well, there's a whole industry that's evolving to deal with climate change, climate mitigation. Cities have to moderate and change the way they construct and build because seas are rising.
Yeah.
All sorts of different, climatic changes are going to impact cities and going to make some cities unlivable. Mm-hmm. Where's the food going to come from? Right now in Connecticut and in New York, we're in the middle of a long drought. It's weird. We had a very wet spring. And we thought we were going to drown, and now we've had a long drought, and it's a record-breaking drought. So we're getting these extremes. So how do you design a community? How do you moderate and mitigate a community to be able to address these complex changes? And these are whole new careers. Mm-hmm. In terms of design, architecture, how humans live, anthropology, human interactions. And people are moving to cities. You see what's happening out west, for instance. Everybody's moving to, Tucson and Phoenix.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no water there. What are they going to do? These are the fastest growing, cities in the country. And, so there has to be whole careers have to be devoted to simply figuring out how populations can live in certain kinds of places. On top of that, there's going to be an enormous amount of migration from all over the world. To the United States and to Canada, where because of heat, because of changes in the season.
Yeah.
And so, how do you deal with migration? You can't just build a wall. Sorry, can't just build a wall because you've got millions of people moving. Yeah. So, but there has to be some solutions which require some real creative thinking. And really smart people thinking about how, this kind of phenomenon can be managed in a way that isn't destructive because it affects everybody.
So true.
So anyway, I on my website, there is a pretty significant list of future potential careers. And I could pull it out but I'd be reading from it. It's enormous. But just know that what is true today won't necessarily be true in 5 years. So you need to build the skills. And this is what businesses are looking for. They're looking for people who may have some hard skills, but they're really looking for people who are creative, who can think outside of the box, who can work in teams. Who have the capacity to take risks and to add value to the company in ways that is not hard commodities. We live in a digital, commodified world.
Sure do.
It's not tangible. I'm not even sure it's capitalism anymore, frankly. That's a debatable point, but the upshot is capitalism was based on the idea of structure and machines that made commodities. Where the real wealth is today is it's digital. It's in the air. And so that struggling with economies that have to, that are digitized.
Oh yeah.
And moving in the cyber direction. How do you redesign so that economies can be strong and healthy and survive and modify over time. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. Lots of opportunity. Okay. But again, it's not, going to business school and learning business is not going to make a job. Okay. It's the creativity and the dynamic and the forward thinking of being in business and being able to look for opportunities and collaborating in ways that are very different. It's going to make the difference. Mm-hmm. That's a totally different model than the zero-sum model that we've been working under all along, which is I win, you lose. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the gap year is also designed just simply for kids to understand that they can find other people out there to collaborate with, to cooperate with, who have something to offer.
Yeah.
And that they need to think about and listen to those people and share with them and maintain those networks. because they're global and they're lifelong.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. And we still have just 2 minutes left, unfortunately, to wrap up the show today. How did you want to leave off for everyone?
Well, again, I think the last time I said this also, I mean, there is plenty of hope out there. It may feel difficult. It may feel overwhelming right now. Just stick with it. Hang in there. But don't expect anybody to just give you something.
Yeah.
If you're a Gen Z kid, don't expect for your parents to give it to you. They're trying to figure it out.
Exactly.
You need to go over it. You need to figure it out and look for those opportunities. Get out into the big wide world. Take the time to understand yourself and the world in a totally different way, and it'll change the way you, from that point forward, the way you approach your school, your thinking, your forward planning, and your multiple careers. And because you're going to have multiple careers. So anyway, lots of great stuff to do. It's all going to be complex and difficult, but it's also going to be really fascinating.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Pleasure having you here. Looking forward to our next show. Tell us how we can contact you, please.
Okay. The Student Compass is the name of my company. So I do a Google search. It'll come up first, or at the top, I guess. And you can email me, Jake Horne, JakeHorne, 8216 @gmail.com. Or give me a call, 860-921-6158.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you back here. And looking forward to the next time we speak. Thanks again, Jake. Great job. And thank you for filling us in on the gap year. Get it? All right, guys, filling that space with the gap year. Contact our friend. And thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Happy early Halloween.
Yes.
Thank you.
Fun.
Bye-bye. You too.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.